Good morning to all the tea and coffee drinking cultures of the world. I got my hat on backwards. Anyway, I just finished my first cup, as you can tell. I'm specifically addressing, like England. I know I've got like about 4 subscribers, something like that. Although analytics is behind, they've admitted they're behind on keeping up with stuff. I have a couple of users that have decided upon their own gender, and yet they're still sticking with me. And of course, Australia. Boy, this is a brief example of using. Oh gosh, this is a brief example. It's of how I have used common sense examples such as I did previously. I'm not even going to go back to that, except maybe to do some more sanitization. If anything got through the AI, I want to tell a specific story where I used common sense with my neighbors. One of them was a rich trust fund baby, alcoholic, didn't really get a real job, if you can call it a real job. And that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to restart. I'll talk over the, you know what? This was the filthiest business in this town when I first got here. Corporate cited him twice. That dumpster building over there was just filled with trash on the ground. He was, I think, between the guy who's about to dump the dumpster right now. That's the noise you hear because the microphone is actually pointing that way. Corporate had to cite him twice for not maintaining his landscaping and for picking up the trash, but he still does a bad job of that. But at least now that dumpster area is clean. Thank you for taking out the trash. 7-Eleven is Japanese owned. 7-Eleven previously was a Texas company that was very tight about their following their rules, like keeping your property clean. Now, be gone. Actually, I went to school with the guy that appears to be, it was his father who invented the Dempster dumpster. That's what they used to be called, label right on them, Dempster dumpster. That's where the name and okay. I had a neighbor that was, I don't know. Actually, I didn't even really hardly know she existed until I tried to rescue her one night. I thought she was being gang raped because she drove up onto what was technically still then her sister's 300 acres and parked close to my fence line, and then began to entertain in sequence. It was at least 4 men, and anyway. Okay. This was actually sometimes previous. I used a example of a pressure a pressure vessel. Coffee takes an hour to kick in. Pressure vessel. It's mostly the hot water that kind of really stimulates you at first. Pressure vessel that's subject to what is essentially kind of a pop valve, the handle on a fire extinguisher. Talking about the physics of that. Now, here's a case where, because the title of this is going to be Common Sense Isn't Very Common. I should come with it because common and mean and vulgar are all the same word. Well, same meaning. She married a dude who was, we call him the 268-hour archaeologist, who actually planted something in the first dig he was was able to join on to, and boom, when you commit fraud in science, you're finished. It doesn't take 268 hours to get a degree. Even then, it was 160 hours for a bachelor's. So, indication actually he was a cocaine freak and stuff, Vietnam veteran. And very, one of them, she married somebody that looked like her, that real high blonde hair and that ruddy Nordic kind of complexion and stuff, real sun sensitive. I turned the color of chocolate cake. So they planned out together, and they, were building a house. They're actually living in a little shed that he had first built there when she finally got her part of the property that her father clearly didn't want her to have. Her father left the land to her older sister. Please listen, because somebody dies at the end of this. This is an important story about how you idiots don't even understand and won't cling to simple common sense science. Even when I give you examples, you're supposed to understand. Okay, cut to the chase. They started to build a house, and actually he expected me to come over there and work for free for him when I have severe physical limitations. Even though then I was walking very well and very active, I was doing my scientific work. I had my own shit to do. And actually she had agreed to put in her half of the building the house. And after the first section was poured and stuff, concrete slab, he decided to do some cold jointing onto it. That was it. She retired back to the shed and actually broke her own vow to stop reading romance novels and watching TV. So I had an early kind of parting with them, and then once the house was in the process of being finished and stuff, they're getting close to it. They had at least the dining area and other thing. And they invited me over. I think that was because I'm the one that dressed out the soft, kind of what we call leatherbacks, turtles that actually I had captured as we spotted it crossing the road, me and John. And I'm the one that could dress it out, get the meat out and the eggs out and all that stuff. The house was near finished. I hadn't been inside it since my blowout with him and stuff, because he really, and his fucking dog chewed up my, oh God, please, long story short. So they invite me over to dinner, and it wasn't that was for a delicacy for special people, and we had a light meal. I most of my adult life, I really didn't eat big meals anymore, and usually just one meal a day. And we're talking, I said, when are you going to seal the cedar? Texas cedar is actually a juniper. And they said, no, we want it to, kind of oxidize and get the natural color. And we're going for more of a rustic look on the whole house. And I went you can't do that. It's toxic. Haven't you noticed that nothing eats it? And I said that only last year I found a tiny, tiny little, almost a milky, translucent, just really can barely see them, termite that can eat the white part of a red wood, a red-hearted cedars, red-hearted junipers, like the Texas cedar juniper. It's a juniper, technically. Redwoods, why do you think they use redwoods? Because they're naturally toxic. And there were already papers out pointing out the toxicity of cedar and pine shavings as bedding for animals. It's not. Off gases, it's just. And I gave them the classic example. I said, y'all remember the cedar chests that were always like a gift to newlyweds? That was This big chest that you could actually sit on in the morning while you're putting on your slippers. My phone went into battery saver mode again. I have no idea why. I used the old cedar chest thing it was always at the foot of the bed. So that was a standard thing. They were huge. And that's where people kept their fine silks and woolens and stuff. Because why? Because it killed them. And I said, you remember? Have you ever seen a cedar chest? They were silent at this point in time because they didn't do the right thing. They didn't really have. He's supposed to have 268 hours of college time. He's riding the GI Bill and doing nothing but jerking off and drinking beer and snorting smoke and coke and smoking coke. Sorry, I got to reposition my posture. See that the classic cedar chest has a big heavy lid, and it's lacquered only on the outside. On the inside, the wood is bare. And pretty much anything that can get in there is going to die before it can do any damage to the fine, because sometimes your blankets were wool. That's what you do. You'd roll off the blanket in the morning or whatever, or the bed spread, maybe a woolen or some other, and you would put it at the very last but in the bottom of cedar chest, you kept your fine silk jammies and wool sweaters and other things that you absolutely definitely had to keep away from moths and other things. And that's because it's toxic as shit. And I warned her that it will damage beginning with the skin, the eyes, the sinuses, the upper respiratory, the lungs. And I said, all the way to the bone was my actual. And guess what? It was about 5 years later. She died from bone cancer. She dumped her husband after he developed a 6-month flu. There's no such thing as a 6-month flu. He was having a severe respiratory reaction. I don't know how the mill dude, George Havlinka, ever survived running a Texas cedar juniper mill. I don't know how he managed to, but he looked kind of ruddy and stuff at times. But maybe that's what's causing it to do that skipping thing, as I'm keep touching it with I don't give a shit with my left hand. I'm at 13 minutes. John was sick as a dog and stuff. He came over to tell me that she was. Yeah, that's just more and more stories there I'm trying to avoid and stuff. He told me that she was. That's how I got the 6 months. When she was so crazy, she had fleas. She had Graves' disease, hypothyroidism. That's why I was forgiving of her sometimes odd behavior, because if you're hypothyroid, you can hallucinate, have all kind of mental problems. But she was a lazy trust fund, drunken slut by the time she was a teenager. She was pretty famous for it. It was known around. People tell me that sometimes she would handle up to 7 guys within like an hour. They'd stand around and watch. She was like the local. And she comes from a very wealthy family, trust fund baby, 40 acres. That's a lot of money in anybody's book. And she said, like, well, he said I got sick, and she's pushing me to both work and finish the house. And she just got mad at me and threw me out. She was a little bit, and so was her sister. That's why I never really socialized with either one of them much. As I could see, her sister had already had her thyroid removed. Leaves that big scar back in the day before scopes or whatever. So he got desperately ill for 6 months just from inhaling all that finishing, some of the fine sanding in the. Cause I got to see the house later on. I'd go in and out for a couple minutes with you, but built her a huge walk-in closet, all of it like strips of 2 by 2, full 2 inches by 2 inches, strips of Texas cedar, juniper, and he got ill immediately, and she slowly. By the time he left, she probably already had cancer. She died slowly because she and her 268-hour archaeologist husband, then ex-husband, didn't listen to my common sense examples of cedar chests and the fact that no insect has ever been able to eat the red part of the redwood trees, the cedars and the sequoias. They use that wood for a reason. The reason is that it's toxic. So this has been a few thousand words about common sense and the fact that it's not very common anymore. It's pretty rare. So it's now rare sense. Okay? We good? Mm-hmm.